IT infrastructure contains all the servers or setup that is that involves your networking, security, your servers, DNS, databases, everything which is related to your IT that comes under IT infrastructure. Now, now what happens if your manager says that Wadi, you have to go and create, you have to go and create uh, two servers on AWS, and you have to connect these two servers with the database because database contains the data, and servers will run the application, and there will be one DNS which you have to set up. Okay. And you have to do this complete infrastructure management in AWS. Okay. So it means that all these components you're going to create in AWS. So if you want to create the entire AWS infrastructure, you have to log into AWS and create all the components manually one by one. So you will go to EC2 instance and EC2 service, you will create EC2s. You will go to RDS, you will create RDS. You will go to Elastic Load Balancer and create load balancer. Like that, you will log in on AWS console and create everything one by one. Whatever component you have to create, that you have to create with the help of AWS console, you will log in inside it and you will create it. Okay. There are other ways of creating like CLI, SDK, but I'm not talking about right now. Let's understand that if I want to create, if I am working as a cloud architect, I am supposed to create these components with the help of AWS console. So my manager will give me access of AWS account and he will ask me that Naman, go and create two EC2 instances, create one S3 bucket, create one RDS, create Route 53. He will tell me and I will go to AWS console and create all these components one by one manually. Okay, I'm taking through the scenario. Now let's imagine that to create this EC2 instance, I used some configuration. I basically used maybe 2 GB of RAM. I gave some name to it. And for creating RDS, I basically used some passwords and I used some username to log in into RDS. For DNS, I used some other configuration. Now, when I went and I created all these, components, so who will remember this configuration? It will be only me because I am the creator of it. So I know that where I have put what values to create that particular service. So let's say when I create EC2 instance, I will give it a name. When I create DB, I'll give a username and password. When I create DNS, I will use some IP addresses. So that information is always limited to me. Okay. Now what happens that because I created this and my manager is very happy. And after some days, I got a job in another organization and I resigned from my current organization where I designed this whole infrastructure. I, I, I resigned and I joined another organization. Now, the person who will join my old project where this infrastructure exists, he will not have any detail. When he will look at the infrastructure, he will be lost that what values I have used or I had used while creating these resources. So he will not have that information. And also, if he makes any small change over here, right, and this small change causes the complete failure of these services, what will happen that he cannot revert it back because entire system will go down because he made few changes, and because of those changes he was not aware about what changes he's doing. He was not having complete information because he's a new in the team and he doesn't have all the information. What will happen? There will be a lot of human errors he can make, and because of those human errors, the complete IT infrastructure can go down. Let's imagine I'm working for an organization A. Okay, I'm working for this organization A. My manager at organization A asked me that, Naman, can you create the infrastructure for us for this project? Can you create the infrastructure? I said, okay, give me the access to AWS. I will go and create all these resources in AWS cloud. I went and created everything in AWS cloud. Now, my manager is happy because I could able to create the complete infrastructure. But I got a very good offer and from organization B, and I moved from organization B to A. Now I have started working over here. Now this organization A hired someone for the replacement of me. They hired someone. Now when the person is new over here at organization A, he will look at the infrastructure, but he will not understand anything. Why? Because the complete infrastructure is designed by whom? By Naman. And Naman has moved to organization B now. So now he will not have any details. Now, when he tries to make few changes anywhere, it can lead to a very big problem. Why? Because he doesn't have the whole information and he tries to make a small change and the connection can break. Connection between these resources can break and the entire infrastructure can be affected. It's a problem. Why it's a problem? Because he does not have the knowledge, and when he tried to make a small change, everything has gone. Now, if we want to revert in AWS, there is no way where you can revert your changes in AWS. Like if he has made some changes and now he wants to revert, he cannot revert otherwise, and he cannot recover the changes. So that's a problem. The problem is that because of because of human errors, everything can go down, because when he tries to make a small change, he cannot roll back. He cannot roll back his changes. Okay. And also, it took me time when I was creating this whole infrastructure. It took me time because I had to go at every place and I had to create these resources, and it took me longer time to create everything. Okay. So it took me long time to create the whole infrastructure, right? Now, these are the problems which every organization was facing earlier, that there was no documentation, proper documentation, and it used to take a very long time to create all these resources one by one manually. Then what happened, that Terraform came into existence. Okay, to address these kind of a scenarios, Terraform came into existence. What happened with the help of Terraform? Terraform is not a manual approach. It's not a manual approach. Okay, it's not a manual approach. I repeat, it's a code approach, CODE approach. Okay, so when we say code approach, there is a difference between manual approach and code approach. It means now with the help of Terraform, I will not go and create the complete infrastructure in AWS manually. I will not create it manually. I will write the code, and with the help of code, I will be able to create this whole infrastructure. Okay, I will be able to create the whole infrastructure with the help of code. Now, if I write in the code, if I write create EC2, create RDS, create DNS, what it will do, it will go ahead and create everything automatically very quickly. Maybe within 5 minutes, it will create everything very quickly. So we actually solve this problem of long time with the help of Terraform, because Terraform has a code approach. Now, when you basically want to make a change in the infrastructure, you will not touch the infrastructure manually. What you will do, you will again make the small change in the infrastructure and you will apply the changes. Automatically, those changes will be made in the infrastructure. So the complete infrastructure you will control with the help of code. Okay. Now you will say, Naman, what is the benefit of controlling the infrastructure with the help of code? The benefit of controlling the complete infrastructure with the code is that if there is any error in the infrastructure, you can immediately roll back to the previous version. You can make those changes again in your code, whatever you have made changes. You will revert your changes and apply this Terraform. Automatically, what will happen? You can recover the older or previous state of your infrastructure. So that this helps to avoid human error. So Terraform was primarily brought into existence because of two reasons. One, it used to take longer time to design the entire infrastructure. And second, it used to, like if there is any error occurs in future, you can immediately revert your changes with the help of code and you can get everything running automatically. That's why Terraform actually played a very important role to basically, automate the entire infrastructure. So how do you automate the IT infrastructure? you write the code once. Okay, you write the code once, and now the same code, the best part about Terraform is that you can use the same code in multiple projects. Now you can use the same code. Let's say you have written the entire code once. Now I can use this to create the infrastructure in my AWS account. I can give it to Spence, and Spence can use the same code and he can create in his account. So it gives us the automation that now we just need to make small changes in the code. We will be controlling entire IT infrastructure, not manually, however, with the help of code. And that flexibility we are getting with the help of Terraform. Let's imagine you want to create a server in AWS. This is EC2 server. And instead of creating it manually, choosing multiple options manually, you don't need to choose those options manually. You will write a code, few lines of code, and when you will execute these code, automatically this will be created for you. So you will not. So now let's imagine there is a house, and so you have a door over here and you have a door over here. So you are not entering in the house from here. You are entering in the house from here. But eventually, if you see it, you are entering in the house. So over here, the result or the output is that we want to create EC2. So instead of using the AWS console, we are leveraging code approach that will help us to create EC2. So now you can create EC2 with the help of UI. You can go to UI and create it, or you can use the code approach. Now, UI approach is not very effective and it is not very good. Why? Because it takes longer time. Okay, that is a problem. And second, it is also a problem. It is also a problem because there are chances of human error. Okay, in the code, when you will write the whole code, you will verify it and then you will run it. So your human error chances decreases. So that is the another factor or another benefit of using code. And third benefit is that if anything goes wrong, you can revert your changes and apply again. And what will happen? You can come back to previous state again. Now, let's say if you are driving a car and you hit your car to some other car, there is no going back. You cannot revert that change. Your car has hit the car already. Now you cannot do any changes. So that's the UI. If you execute something, if you create something, you cannot do anything about it. But in code-based approach, if you have made some changes, if you have created something and you want to make some changes, code will automatically make the changes and it can take care of everything. So that's why code approach is a bit better approach as compared to UI approach, user interface approach. Okay. Now you would have some questions about like long time or human errors or reversing back, like how can we reverse back with the help of code? That you will understand slowly and slowly when we will proceed further with our sessions. But always remember, if anyone asks you in the interview that why Terraform is important and why Terraform is considered to be very important, you can give these three benefits: that it takes less time to create the infrastructure, it is helpful to manage the infrastructure, and it helps to automate the infrastructure. Automate means whatever code you write once, right? And you can copy the same thing in another AWS account. You can copy the same thing in another AWS account. But if you do it through UI, you have to manually do those steps one by one in other AWS account. So with the help of Terraform, you can manage the infrastructure easily. That is one benefit. You can replicate the infrastructure easily in other account. That is another benefit of using Terraform. Okay. And also there are less errors. You will have less errors if you use Terraform. So these are the benefits that why we need Terraform and why Terraform has become very important. Now you know what? AWS has a service that is CloudFormation. Okay. And AWS has a service called CloudFormation, which does the same job. But industry prefers to go with Terraform. You know why? The reason of choosing the Terraform is, I mean, CloudFormation works only and only with AWS, but Terraform can work with multiple clouds. It can work with Azure, it can work with GCP, it can work with IBM Cloud, it can work with a lot of clouds, it can work with any infrastructure. So Terraform has it, AWS has, CloudFormation has only one provider, that is AWS, that it can work only with one AWS cloud. But you know what? Terraform can work with 1700 providers. Can you imagine? That in your project, if you're, because what happens when you work for a company, you don't just work for AWS, you work for various different technologies. Terraform supports 1700 technologies. So if you want to create servers in Azure, you can use Terraform. If you want to create servers in GCP, you can use Terraform. If you want to create servers in AWS, you can use Terraform. If you want to create a local file in my laptop, you can use Terraform. So how do we create a file in laptop? We just we just right click on it and click on new file. But if you want to create the file with the help of Terraform, that is also possible. So Terraform supports more than 1700 providers. AWS is one of the provider out of 1700. Can you imagine that how compatible it is with different technologies? And that's why it has the most, it is considered to be most accepted technology across the globe. If you have your Terraform in your resume, that shines, that shines very bright. You know how? Because of its capability of 1700 plus connections it can create with different vendors like Azure, AWS, GCP, and it helps to do it. The best part, part about Terraform is that it follows the same way to code. The way you are coding for AWS, right? You will use the same way to code for Azure, same way to code for GCP, same way to code for any other technology. I mean, it's crazy because it follows the same thing for every other cloud or for every other technology.
Thank you for watching. Switch from non-IT to IT today. Explore www.thinkcloudly.com.